Hello, this is Jamie from the review episode of the League One Lowdown. Don't worry, we'll get to this preview episode in just a minute, but I'm here because I found out that only 15% of you are subscribed, and that means 85% of you aren't subscribed. So, all I ask is that you please subscribe to the channel so you stay up to date and never miss an episode.
Hello and welcome to the League One Lowdown. We are back. Happy New Year to everyone. We hope you had a lovely break. Callum, I'm joined by you again. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, lovely stuff. How are you, Sam? Yeah,
all good. Yeah, I'm sure you're delighted to be talking about a certain team later on in this podcast.
Should we just sack this episode off? Happy New Year. Bye, everyone.
got to start off with a little jab in there. So we have no predictions to go over because if you weren't aware, we had basically a break from the Predictions League, which delighted Callum because if we refresh the scores, he is on 138 points and I am on 128. So Callum is very much looking forward to me buying my Lincoln City shirt at the weekend. And if their form goes anything to go by, there will be loads in stock at the end of the season. So in
this... with a League Two sign on or something like that. That's great. Oh, dear me.
So in this episode, we're going to look at the best 5 teams over Christmas, the 5 worst teams over Christmas. I have done my League One team of the season so far. Callum will be doing his next week. And then we've got a preview of this week's 12 League One fixtures as long as Wigan's area clears up with rain. So what we're going to do, we're going to do my team of the season first because I think that'll be the most talked about point. So let's get the clip up. Callum? There is the team of the season. I don't know if you can read that because that image is the lowest quality I've ever seen.
It's tiny. Let me try and get it up on.
So we've got try and get Exeter City's Joe Whitworth is in goal. We have a back 4 of Wrexham's Ryan Bennett, Christian Bielik from Birmingham, Ewan O'Connell from Wrexham, and Jack Curry from Orient. I had to have an Orient player in there. I very, 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 very nearly went for Josh Keeley. Sanko Paik from Birmingham in the 6, and then Adam Phillips and Lewis Wing as the 2 8s, with Louis Barry on the left, Koi Poku on the right, and Richard Kone up front.
I mean, the shock will be, why isn't Stansfield up front? Obviously,
what a great player. The argument for that is he's cost 15 million British pounds. Kone cost 0, and Stansfield had the same number of goals as Kone, but 5 of them were penalties. That's my argument.
I can see. I think you've got valid arguments for them all. I think that there has to be a Reading representation in there. Lewis Wing has been a great player. Obviously, Birmingham top of the league as well. You expect Bielik and Park to be in there as well. 2 great players, and obviously you'd expect them to be easy championship level next year. Richard Kone has just been. I feel like I need to brush up on my. Is it Kone law that where he was just in like the Essex Senior League or something?
Yeah, he was low.
A year ago, and now he's smashing it in League One. What a story that is. Poku's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you can't ignore how great he's been and how great Peterborough has been. But then, you just wonder, like, where is he going wrong? And I suppose that's more of a defensive issue. But then, isn't the attack the first form of defence? I suppose. So,
yeah.
I would criticise the Orient inclusion a couple of weeks ago, but to me it just makes a lot of sense at the moment. Orient, they are the form side, as I've said a couple of times recently. They are the form side, so I can't really criticise that a huge amount. I would argue where are the Lincoln players, but that's because 1, I'm biased, and 2, on current form, none of them deserve to be on there. And obviously Exeter, are they still the lowest conceding side in the division?
They're not, no.
Up there.
Lincoln up there, Exeter have conceded 29 now. The lowest is Birmingham and Huddersfield with 17. Birmingham and Wrexham, Birmingham 17, Huddersfield 19, Wrexham 18, Orient 22, and Charlton 21 at the lowest, and Wigan at 20th with 20 as well.
It's one of them that you'd imagine without Whitworth that have conceded a lot more, but I'd probably suggest maybe 1 or 2 more Wycombe players, but who and where they go, it's probably the argument.
So the argument I had, the midfield was the hardest thing to pick because you've got Aaron Morley, who's been outstanding for Wycombe, who's now gone back to Bolton. but then you kind of had to have a Birmingham representative in midfield, and that's where Morley plays. The other argument I had for central midfield was Ben Wiles, who's been outstanding for Huddersfield, because I don't actually have a Huddersfield player in there, and they've been excellent. Ben Wiles was the one I picked out, and it was then a debate between him, Phillips, and Wing. Wing just has that bit about him where he can score from any distance, and his defensive stats are outstanding. So that ruled him replacing Wing, because Wing was an more rounded midfielder and what he's done for Reading and where they are in the table. And then the other option was Adam Phillips or Ben Wiles. And I just personally prefer Adam Phillips as a player to Ben. That's just personal preference. And that was backed up with, thankfully, Adam Phillips scoring at the weekend as well.
The one player that I'm just looking at Jamie's as well. I'm sure they'll go over theirs another time. You can see it on social media, on YouTube as well. The one player I'm surprised that's in neither of your teams is Kilo Dunn. Whenever I seem to, on a Saturday, I have limited opportunity to look up and see who scored. But the stats definitely won't back this up. But whenever I look, it always seems like he's involved somewhere. Yeah. And I think that signing late in the transfer window, obviously it's taken him a bit of time to embed himself. But I think he's got to be responsible as well for Barnsley being sixth as well. So I'd argue where's his spot, but. It's a good league this year, isn't it? So
yes, it's very, very good because you've got a number of strikers you could probably pick. And the thing with Kilo Dunn, I don't like him as a lone striker. I've had to try and think of it as if I'm picking a squad, where would like Kilo Dunn fit? And I personally prefer Kilo Dunn just off the number 9.
Yeah.
So he'd play in like the 10 sort of area. So if I was to do that, I'd probably take Phillips out and then I'd put Kilo Dunn in and then just push it up. That's probably fair.
I'll have a look at mine. Hopefully, we'll have that to look at next week as well.
Yes, we could do that next week. So I shall remove my team, and we shall now get cracking and look at the 5 best. Actually, no, let's do with the worst. Let's start with the worst. 5 worst performing teams over the Christmas period. The team that lost all 4 games, so the 21st, 26th, the 29th, and New Year's Day, was Cambridge United. A miserable time for them and their supporters. Now they are still somehow, through some miracle, not bottom of the league. I'm pretty sure it's now 1 win in 13 for Cambridge as well. Gary Monk's still the man in charge. Do we think, because we've obviously got the break next week in terms of there's a cup opportunity, which could be a good distraction if they're still even in the cup, which I don't think they are. It's an opportunity for them to sack Gary Monk if they lose this weekend.
It's an opportunity, but there's not been that many. I can't hear it. There's not been many murmurings about it. I mean, I'm not hugely plugged into Cambridge United stuff, but it kind of feels like they were at rock bottom at the start of the year, and the chance that they've had to sack him has gone. So I'm just a bit like, I kind of feel like they'll just persist with him until the end of the year. I think he's already gone on that losing run and then won 3 in a row, didn't he? I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the time to sack him might have come and pass. That miracle as to why they're not bottom is Burton, although well, I suppose we'll get on to them. But yeah, Cambridge, interesting one for me. I just think they'll stick with Monk until the end of the season. Whether that's the right choice or not, well, I don't think it is, but I can't see them moving on.
Yeah, they have a history, don't they, of Cambridge like, keeping faith. Obviously, they kept Mark Bonner through that really difficult spell. He kept them up in the end. And then they had a very similar start last season, and they did get rid of him. But they didn't actually get rid of him till about March. So we could be in a period where Gary Monk gets January to try and refresh the squad, shall we say. And then they do exactly the same thing as sack him and just hope that whoever they bring in changes sort of their fortune. But they're 5 points currently from safety. We're at exactly the halfway point, near enough, in the season now. So it's a good point to try and reflect on the season as a whole. Speaking of the season as a whole, for Peterborough United, picking up 1 point over Christmas, sitting in 18th place, the second best attack in the division with 41 goals, but the worst defence in the league, conceding 45 goals. They drew 2-2 with Burton last time out, which gave them their point over Christmas. I'm not really sure what to say from Peterborough. Sam Curtis got recalled today by Sheffield United. So that's another defensive option out of the squad at Peterborough. I'm pretty sure it's pretty clear where the reinforcements need to come in January.
Well, yeah, obviously, I think even me as a director of football could probably make one or two correct signings there. It baffles me. I mean, it's worth pointing out that even in that match against Burton, I think they'd found themselves 2-0 down.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they could have easily had 0 points from the 5 games, which for Peterborough United, I mean, we know the rivalry between them and Cambridge. Both of them are doing terribly as well. So it's kind of like they're just lapping at each other because they're both in dire straits at the moment. Peterborough, we can't avoid saying they're not in. I mean, they are in a relegation battle, but for me, it's a bit like Leicester in the Premier League last year. It feels like they're too big to go down. Like, I could not imagine a world where Peterborough are in League Two. But
I know what you mean.
Also, if they go into League Two, it would be a great FM25 save when that eventually comes out. So swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, we're 2 months away from that now. Hopefully, I've jinxed that now. But yeah, they've obviously got that Swedish striker. I think they've bought in for January already. Not that scoring goals is a problem, but losing Sam Curtis is an issue already. There's always going to be interest over Hector Cipriano in their midfield as well. So it could be a very challenging January. And then the other thought is, do they keep Darren Ferguson? But then if they sack Darren Ferguson, who are they going to get? They'll probably end up with Darren Ferguson again.
Yeah.
So, or they'll go after Grant McCann. They just seem to alternate between them two. The next team who only got 1 point over Christmas was Bristol Rovers, who obviously changed their manager. 2 defeats from 2 for him, but he's not exactly had time to put his impression on the squad. Obviously, they played us yesterday, and it was a completely different performance from what they had at the start of December. They looked much more aggressive, a bit more front-footed, a bit more direct. On the chair was a handful before he went off, and then Chris Martin come on and scored twice. I think Bristol Rovers will be fine. I think they've got enough quality going forward to keep them up. Defensively, there is issues. The defence is very slow. But I think they'll be more of a counter-attacking team under Calderon, especially in the second half of the season. So I think they'll be fine, regardless of their current state of form.
Yeah, it's just when you're only 2 points there, it's a bit like, I can't remember what teams there were last year, where there were a couple of teams that were just like 2 or 3 points above the relegation zone at all time, and it's never comfortable when that's the situation. But at the end of the day, if you're always 2 points ahead of the relegation zone, you're never in it, and that's kind of what matters. So it's just whether they drop into that. It's whether Crawley can put together a run of form. Dare we even say Shrewsbury, Cambridge, or even Burton? All it takes is one of those sides to have a decent run of form, and then you're straight into the mud again. So it's not comfortable at all for Bristol Rovers, and only 1 point over the festive period is not ideal by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I do agree. And then the 2 teams that picked up 2 points, Crawley Town are not included, along with Huddersfield, Crawley and Charlton, just purely because they've played a game less because of postponement. So I didn't think it was fair to put Crawley in, because they could have gone and beaten Charlton. So Northampton and Burton have only picked up 2 points. Obviously, Northampton changed their manager as well, with Kevin Nolan going in, which I think is a rather rogue sort of appointment. Burton, obviously, with Gary Bowyer now taking the reins. So the battle of 2 new managers. Burton's form, I mean, it's slightly improved now with 3 draws in 5. They're still not getting over the line when you're 2-0 up. They need to be winning these games now. For Northampton, they have drawn 2 and lost 3 of their final 5. I think Northampton are probably the team looking over their shoulder a bit more, just purely because they've got a lot of injuries. They've got an ageing squad. There's not a lot of League One quality in that squad either. So I think they're the team that are going to be looking over their shoulder. I think Burton are done. I think Cambridge are done. And then it's a battle between, I suppose you could include Peterborough. So Peterborough, Northampton, Bristol Rovers, Crawley and Shrewsbury to beat the drop.
The thing is with Burton, they've never really looked like putting a run together at all. Like even when they went 2-0 up against Peterborough, you're just thinking, when's Peterborough's goal coming? Because Peterborough always score.
Yeah.
And as soon as even at 2-0 up, my initial reaction was, Christ, Burton are 2-0 up against Peterborough. Like, to me, that's a huge scoreline. And then it's also, oh, wait a second,
it's
Peterborough are going to score, and when they do score, Burton's heads are going to drop and there'll be no confidence in there. And that's that's the situation when you're at the bottom of the table. So not great for Burton, but as soon as that win comes, and then maybe a second win comes, like you said, for a lot of people they're done. But I always feel like with only half the season gone, you can't rule them out completely.
Nope.
But they might be done, but they also might survive.
I mean, it'd be very Burton genes, wouldn't it, to actually survive? They did it last year. Could they do it? I think it'd be the third time lucky because Mamria did it the first year as well. We came in, so it could be third time lucky for Burton. So moving on to the teams that are the most in form, I'm going to enjoy this because the only team to win all 4 games over the Christmas period was Leyton Orient, scoring goals for fun. Club record 6 league clean sheets in a row. Since Josh Keeley scored that header against Oldham in the FA Cup, we've won every game but drawing with Burton 0-0. So Orient got 12 points over the Christmas period, and you all laughed at me when I said Orient would be 12th after the Christmas period. Well, in fact, all of us were wrong because they're 8th. So thank you, everyone, for that. I was going to include that clip of you were wrong, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So yeah, Orient have picked up 12 points. Obviously, they played probably the weaker sides, Bristol Rovers, Cambridge, and Crawley over Christmas. But they did the job on all of them. And they obviously went to Barnsley. It was bloody freezing in Barnsley when I went there. But they won 4-0 away at Barnsley, who actually haven't lost since. And they are one of the 4 teams to pick up 9 points over Christmas. You have Barnsley, Callum's favourite Mansfield, Reading and Charlton, who won 3 of their 3 games over Christmas. So we'll start with Charlton. Obviously, a bit of a revival from when we were criticising them before Christmas, thinking, it looks like it's going to be a mid-table season. They went away. They learnt to score goals. Players back from injury, and now they seem to be firing on all cylinders again.
I mean, they are still mid-table. They are literally one place above mid-table. So that don't get wrong, they're doing all right. 9 points is all right. It's 10 in the last 4 as well, which is what I've got in front of me on the form table. And it's not like the teams they've been playing have been rubbish either. 1.33 is their opponent's points per game over the last 4. Obviously, it's a bit of a disgrace that game was called off 20 minutes before kickoff. That is absolutely shocking. I get that Charlton to Crawley isn't a huge distance. It is just across London, but that's still stupid. It's still very, very pointless. But anyway, that's beside the point. Charlton have been impressive, but it's whether they can push on now. I mean, there's 6 points outside the playoff places. Does anyone actually think they can make it? I know the last time I said that about Leyton Orient, they went and did it. I just have doubts as to whether they can kick on and actually make something of this season, or whether this form is just a bit of a flash in the pan. I'll happily be proved wrong, but
yeah, you could think it's probably going to be a very, very big January for Charlton in terms of this is probably the season because of the teams. I personally think Reading lose a lot of players. Barnsley are very inconsistent. Stockport have lost arguably the best player in the league. And Bolton aren't at their best. So there's 2 places, I think, up for grabs in these playoffs. So it's a really good opportunity for Charlton, Orient, even Mansfield, Blackpool, Wigan to have a really good second half of the season and try and get them last 2 places. Reading also picked up 9 points. Obviously, Noel Hunt has continued the good job of Ruben Selles. Again, you'd like to think that Reading would keep hold of their key assets, Sam Smith, Harvey Nibbs, Lewis Wing, Tyler Bindon over January, but that's going to be incredibly difficult, I think.
I mean, we have to give them credit because we all thought they'd just drop off. I think everyone thought they would drop off, and don't get me wrong, they still might do. There's every kind of expectation that they could still drop off as players get tired and whatnot, but they are doing an incredible job. And Stockport, they're still in the hunt, but then you go down to Leyton Orient, and they're 6 points ahead of that. That's that they've got 2 games in hand, effectively in terms of points. So, all respect to Reading. I mean, I don't think I'd have predicted them to still to win 3 in a row. When Lincoln beat them, and we'll talk about Lincoln later on when we come to the games in the future. But when Lincoln beat them, it kind of afterwards it had the air of, okay, Lincoln might kick on now, and that this Reading team are done. You know, this Reading team, they're going to really struggle for the rest of this season. That was kind of the air of the game and what a lot of people took going after it. But I mean, fair play to them. Those 3 wins in a row, that's really impressive from obviously defeat and obviously losing your manager to bounce back like that. We keep running out of credit for them, to be honest. That they are doing an incredible side, and as much as we love Wycombe, I think so far Reading probably the team of the year.
Yeah, and they're the only team to beat Mansfield over the Christmas period, who also got 9 points. Callum, your favourite team now, just also sitting now in 9th place. They had a sticky period 5 or 6 games ago, but have recovered really well. Sitting in 9th place, fair play to Nigel Clough. He knows how to get the best out of the squad, and it's also coincided with Lee Gregory returning to scoring form. I think Mansfield will be pretty content with their Christmas work.
I mean, my New Year's resolution is to be nice to all fans of all teams and whatnot, but I think they'll be all right. Yeah. Mansfield, I can't see them making a push for playoffs. It's there for the taking, obviously, but their form is a bit too meh. But and when you're reliant on one player like Lee Gregory's goal scoring form, that's always a bit of a worry, I suppose. But I mean, the playoffs are there for the taking. They're 5 points away from it, which is very overcomeable. They have got 2 games in hand on Barnsley, who are in that last place at the moment. So they could do it. There's no reason why they can't. But just whether they'll be able to at the first time, it's not like they've got the resources of a Wrexham or a Stockport. So for them to go back to back into the playoffs, I'd be very impressed.
Yeah, we'd have another manager of the season, I think, contender. If it could be a very difficult season to pick a manager of the season.
Nigel Clough, to be fair, I remember growing up and he was manager of Burton and Derby at points, wasn't he? So, he's one of them that's been around for a long time at this sort of level. So for him to evolve in that sort of way is very impressive.
And he's got an experienced squad at his hands as well, so they will know the pressures of the second half. And there's no pressure on them, which could only work in their favour. And then Barnsley, they did have pressure on them at the start of the season, I think, with key assets being lost. But the 3 wins have coincided with Luca Connell and Adam Phillips both returning to the midfield. So they are crucial components of what good Barnsley can do in the second half of the season. Obviously, winning their home game on New Year's Day after a pretty dismal home record. We had 2 wins before yesterday this season at home. Can only fill them with good joy. So new year, new home form, hopefully, for Seb and Barnsley.
Yeah, they obviously bounced back from that 4-0 defeat at home, which I'm sure you thoroughly enjoyed, Sam.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, to ground out results against Bolton, Peterborough as well with Keeler Dunn, who were getting goals in the last. He scored in 3 of the last. That's where it must have come from. He scored in all 3 of the last games. He scored in 3 in a row, which is very impressive, and obviously a win as we're recording this yesterday against Wrexham as well. They just need more of those types of results, don't they? Just to grind it out. They nearly let it go with obviously conceding that late goal against Wrexham, but they just need more of those types of performances at home. And that's what, as the manager, if I was in charge, I'd kind of grind into them. You just need more of the same.
Yeah, I remember Darryl Clark. I listened to Darryl Clark after we played them, and he was like proper fuming. So that kick up the backside seems to have done Barnsley some good. So it's everyone's favourite time, especially Callum's at the moment, prediction time. Some of these games we will rattle through, but mainly because we've discussed the teams already. So Cambridge, Bristol Rovers, we've discussed both teams already. Callum, what are you going for here?
I mean, a win, you put Bristol Rovers much further ahead of the relegation zone. They could obviously go up to, 18th is unlikely, but probably 19th, and put that team between them and the relegation spots. But Cambridge are just a side that are really struggling for confidence and just anything to hold on to at the moment. But both sides are just incredibly poor at the moment. This has got a 1-1 written all over it, I think.
1-1. Okay. I've gone for 2-1 to Bristol Rovers. Next, another 2 teams we've discussed is Burton versus Northampton.
I can see a win for Burton here. I don't know what it is about this game. I just think Northampton, both teams with back-to-back draws, but I kind of back Burton as with the new manager to kind of, I back their manager more than I back Kevin Olin, if I'm honest. So I'll probably go 2-1 to Burton.
Okay. I know I've gone for 1-1 in that game. I think that's got a draw written all over it. Both teams drawn 8 games so far this season. 2 teams we haven't discussed yet. Wycombe, top of the league, versus Blackpool. Obviously, Wycombe have lost 2 key assets in 2 days. Aaron Morley being recalled by Bolton, which I don't think's come to a surprise to anyone. I think Bolton would have been a bit stupid not to recall him with the form he's shown at Wycombe. Obviously, he got the winner in his final game for them in the 92nd minute, I think it was. And Caleb Taylor, as of about an hour ago, at the time of recording, has been recalled by West Brom as well. A big component, started 90% of the fixtures so far for Wycombe at centre-half this season. So 2 big components lost for Wycombe. They did get taken over, obviously, in the summer. I think it was by a Kazakhstani man who, if you looked on, I think it's called Globe's financial thing, he was one of the richest men in the world. So depending how they want to go about it, I couldn't remember from the summer that Wycombe went out and spent any money anyway. And if they did, it wasn't major. So we could see both return permanently. We don't know. Caleb Taylor's contract is up at the end of the season at West Brom, according to Transfer Market. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Obviously, Blackpool's form seem to have gone back to the way they were. Steve Bruce obviously came back. They were a little bit hit and miss. They then found their mojo. I think they won 4 in a row, and now they haven't won in 4 again. An extremely inconsistent side.
That inconsistency is what's going to cost them. We've seen at times this year Blackpool were, they were playoff form. One going to say automatic promotion form. They've definitely been playoff form at time this season, but they're just not routine and consistent enough. Wycombe, we know it's not as perfect as it once was for them, but back to winning ways last time. It is hard to be as perfect as they were for much of this year, all the way through the year. I just back Wycombe here. Blackpool, I don't have as much confidence in. I can see it being a 2-0.
2-0. Okay. Yeah, I've gone for 3-0 Wycombe, which in hindsight probably isn't the best score because I think Blackpool will score, but I'm sticking with it because last time I did this, I changed my mind and it all went Pete Tong. Stockport versus Mansfield. Obviously, we discussed Mansfield, so I think it's prevalent to discuss Stockport. Obviously, Louis Barry, the league's top scorer, and if you combine goals and assists together, the man who was top of every chart, returning to Aston Villa. Obviously, Stockport are in a bit of mixed form as well, with 1 win in 5. They're going through another sort of rocky period. If their aims are top 6, a very big January ahead for Stockport.
Yeah, Louis Barry, it's to be expected, isn't it? 17 goals and assists, 15 of them goals. That's basically 3/4 of a goal every 90 minutes. Whenever you've got a striker in that sort of form, that sort of, getting the amount of shots he gets. He's not got the best goal conversion by a mile, only 21%, which compared to Kone of 26% and Nibs of 28%, 21% isn't great, but it's still, when you're getting away the amount of shots that he is, it's very impressive. And yeah, he's clearly championship quality.
Yeah.
He's nowhere near Aston Villa's starting lineup because that jump to the Premier League from League One is huge, and we shouldn't say that it isn't. But I just think Louis Barry, it was always destined to be that he'd go back in terms of the game. So we should focus on that, probably not the Louis Barry podcast, although I imagine that'll probably get a few listeners. I'll go with Stockport on this one, 3-1.
Ooh. Oh, Mansfield fans in the comments. Mansfield fans.
I love you, Mansfield fans, but I just Stockport. I go based on vibes, and that is, there's no logic to that prediction at all. But we'll go 3-1.
Well, last time we did that, you nearly got it right, so I'll give you that one. I've gone for 2-2 in this game. We've got a lot of different scorelines this week, which is rather interesting. Good. Next one is Wrexham Peterborough. Obviously, we've discussed Peterborough and how pony they've been. Wrexham, I mean, their home form's exceptional. I expect them to. There is interest. I believe it was them and Huddersfield. There was a rumour going around that they're looking at Ryan Hardy from Plymouth for £2 million. I mean, if they weren't contenders for promotion already, Wrexham, and they sign Ryan Hardy, I think they're going to be firm favourites for a top 2 spot.
Whether with Wycombe on their current form and Birmingham City are going to get promoted somehow. Whether it's first or second, we don't know. Obviously, Wrexham, they have played more than both Wycombe and Birmingham. In terms of this game, I can see Peterborough scoring. Peterborough have to score. I just think Wrexham will score more than them, and I think it'll be probably 3-2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there, because I agree Peterborough are going to have to score 4 probably to win this game. We know Peterborough are a young side. Physically, they're not the best, and if anyone's watched Wrexham this year, you just need to look at some of the players they've got. Clayworth, O'Connell, George Dobson, they're all Ollie Palmer, Jack Marriott, they're all physical units. And yeah, it could be a bit of a dreadful afternoon for Posh in Wales. I've gone for a Wrexham win as well at 2-1. Again, you're going to look forward to talking about, Callum. I'm going to let you take the reins. Is Lincoln versus Stevenage. We're not going to discuss Stevenage as much because they are just there and they are the league's most boring side ever. Sorry, Stevenage fans, but it is true. You don't score, you don't concede, you draw 0-0 every week. So you're just there, I'm afraid. But there's prevalent discussion here with Lincoln. Michael Skubala, under pressure.
Yeah, I don't know whether he's under pressure. I think there's a lot of hope that he'll come in like last year and they'll all of a sudden, put together a run of form like they did last year. The thing is with Lincoln at the minute is they're so easy to figure out. Everyone knows how they play. I think there was a conversation, and it's been talked about elsewhere, that Gareth Ainsworth once said when he was talking to someone, he knew straight away how Lincoln would play. And it's like when you're that easy to predict, it's so easy to just play around it. It's like they're trying to be Rotherham and Steve Evans' style of play, but with a bit more, I don't know what to say, but a bit more pizzazz about the whole situation. But they're just not. They don't have the players to do that. They've got too many injuries at the moment, and it's really, really annoying. I hate seeing Lincoln in bad form because it makes my job a lot more boring, and it's just so boring. But Lincoln they're just so predictable. And the thing is, when you look at money, when you look at how much money every side has, Lincoln are still ahead of where they should be.
Yep.
So in terms of value for money, Lincoln are well ahead of where they should be, 100%, right? But we know Lincoln can do it. They didn't play this long ball hoof tactic towards the end of last year at all. It wasn't the style of play that they went on on that run of form last year. That, to me, I still have no clue where it came from. But I don't know what it is about this year. They're just not putting together that flows of play. And we saw yesterday, and this to me was the worrying thing about it, is they subbed off, I think it was McCarmer and Cadamarteri, it was Moylan and Cadamarteri, who were the two best players on the pitch before Rotherham scored. And both of those substitutions were booed. Now, I don't know many times when someone being subbed off has been booed, not because of a bad performance, but because the manager's taken them off. I mean, out of all of the squad, Moylan's the player who's going to do something, right? He's that magic player. Magic Moylan is literally his nickname or whatever. So, yes, Skubala, I don't want to. I'm not in that hire and fire, and I don't like that style of play. I don't like it because it doesn't work, and it would be stupid of Lincoln to do that given how long his contract is. But something's got to come out of it. So, something's got to happen soon, else Lincoln will be. I don't want to say Lincoln will be looking to make a change, but they won't be looking to continue with him any longer. They've got two people behind him in Tom Shaw and Chris Cohen, who I imagine could probably do a great job at League One level as well. You know, Tom Shaw did an okay job when he was interim, and Chris Cohen, we know he's been an assistant manager at a higher level as well. So in terms of the game, which is probably what we should be focusing on, they are just... It has a draw written all over it, but then there's still that blind optimism as a football fan that you have, and I can see a 1-0 Lincoln, and I'm gonna go with that and call me a fan because I am.
Now I've gone for a 1-1 draw. I think that's probably the most obvious result ever, but it does mean Lincoln have to score. I think Stevenage will probably score a set piece. So if you haven't got Piergianni in your fantasy FL teams, I'd probably stick him in. Moving on to Leyton Orient versus Shrewsbury. I'm going to talk about Shrewsbury, I think, first, because we've briefly discussed Orient already. In terms of Shrewsbury, I think Gareth Ainsworth's gone in, and he's done what Gareth Ainsworth's done. While Shrewsbury is still the second leakiest defence in the league, they're unbeaten in 4. 3 draws and a win. That's not to be snuffed at all. Gareth Ainsworth is one of their managers, especially, I think, at League One level is his level. They've got a low budget at Shrewsbury. Some of the players have played under him before at Shrewsbury. Aaron Pierre is the one that I think sticks out in my head. You know what you're going to get? You're going to get boring football, but effective football. They're going to be very good at picking up second balls. They're going to be a physical outfit, and they're just going to be extremely well organised. You can tell under Gareth Ainsworth they conceded a hell of a lot less goals. They obviously got a really impressive victory against Birmingham in his first game. Then they got, I think, was smacked in the next game. But over the Christmas period, you saw that Gareth Ainsworth sort of team coming out. Obviously, with a lot of games in a short amount of time, they're unbeaten. And coming to an Orient side who are really in form, I think it's going to be a tougher game than Orient fans think it is. Mm-hmm. You can look at form tables, you look at league tables all you want. This weekend is about a mental strength. You can take, because when you've played, I think it's be 5 games in 15 days, something like that. You can be as fit as you want, but high intensity performances are going to be strained. You're going to have muscle fatigue, you're going to have everything. So we're quite a high pressing side, so it's going to be really difficult for us. Shrewsbury are just going to probably sit back, look to play long ball on the counter attack and play off second balls. A Gareth Ainsworth side is very mentally strong. A Richie Wellens side is very mentally strong, but we saw little bits against Bristol Rovers where the fatigue mentally not being in the right areas, and you could see little traits coming back in from earlier in the season. So I think it will be a draw. I think Orient will remain unbeaten, and I think it'll be 0-0. I think it'll just be a very scrappy game. Shrewsbury will make it a scrappy game, and they'll let Orient try and break them down. And while Orient have scored 19 goals, I think it is, in their last 8 games, I think it'll just be an efficient Shrewsbury performance, and Orient won't be able to break it down. And especially with Dan Ajay probably being injured, going off injured yesterday with an ankle injury, I think it'll be a more difficult game than Orient fans would expect.
I think I'm along similar lines of thinking to you. Kind of a 1-1 is probably where I'm thinking. I don't like predicting goalless draws because I just like to think that there'll be something happening in every game. So I'll go 1-1.
Yep, okay. So we've both got draws. So we've got 4 games left remaining. One of them has a prevalent talking point, which we're going to start with now. Ian Evatt. The dreaded vote of confidence come out just before Christmas. So that was happy Christmas to Ian Evatt to hear that. Since then, Bolton have won 1 game, lost 2 and drawn 1. Obviously losing to Mansfield. The dreaded vote of confidence seems to get worse every week. For more poor Ian. It's his worst points return in terms of points per game since he took charge 4 years ago. It's 1.6 at the moment. Obviously, with the squad they've got, it's well documented that squad should be top 4 at least. I know the league's a bit more difficult this year, but they should not be where they are in the table. I think that's pretty easy to document. And I still can't understand loaning out Aaron Morley anyway, so especially to a club in the same league. That still doesn't sit right, regardless if you thought Wycombe were going to be promotion contenders. Selling him to, or loading him to, a league rival, I thought was pretty dumb in the first place.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they'll give him to the end of the year and give him a bit of a send-off, regardless of what happens. I can't see them getting rid of him at this point. really. In terms of the game, Bolton, I can see them getting a win here, 2-1, probably away from home.
Yeah, same as me. One of the longest journeys, I believe, in the division, Exeter to Bolton, I would imagine.
Surprise me.
I can't think of any other teams that are probably more north. I'm sure someone will correct us. People like correcting our geography. So, next one is Wigan versus Birmingham. I actually think this will be a really tough game for Birmingham because I think Wigan are very well organised. 20 goals conceded. I don't know if you saw the Josh Robinson signing video. Who I want to know in the comments who puts water in first before the squash. If you do that, leave it in the comments because I really want to know what percentage of the population or the listeners actually do this. And while you're in the comments, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I went through Birmingham. Obviously, Birmingham drew, I think, their last game to Stockport, and I went through some of the Twitter comments as you do. They're not very happy at the moment. They don't think they've got a plan B. They think they've been a little bit found out. I don't think this league's been the walk in the park they thought it would. I know they've got a game in hand over Wycombe, who are top, and they are level on points. But they've still failed to win 7 games, which is a third, near enough, of the games they've actually failed to win. So it's not been as walk in the park as I think they thought it would be, which is quite funny.
I don't think any league is a walk in a park, to be fair, other than if you're Man City for the last 5 years, but even they're struggling now. I can't see Wigan really laying much of a glove on them, though. I don't know what it is. I just think this is one of them where quality shines through, and I'm going 3-1 to Birmingham.
Okay, I've gone for a 2-2 draw in this one. 3 games to go. So we've got Charlton versus Reading next. I think this is probably the most difficult game to predict of everything because Reading won their last away game and we've criticised their away form very heavily. But Charlton are in extremely good form and would have had that much needed rest midweek as well. So I will go for a Charlton win and I'll go for a 2-0 Charlton win.
I'm going for a scoring draw, 2-2.
2-2?
I think both sides are in good form and I just don't think either of them will relent.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then we've got, I believe this is a Yorkshire derby. It's Huddersfield versus Rotherham.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, someone will tell us. If not, we'll get told off. Obviously, Rotherham, Steve Evans is still in charge, regardless if they've scored 21 goals in 22 games, but they don't concede either, 23. They've won 2 of their last 5, facing a Huddersfield side who, again, had that much needed rest midweek, sitting in 4th in the league, 43 points. Pretty much quietly going about their business. Not many people talk about Huddersfield. They've obviously made, I can't remember, they've signed one player who I can't remember off the top of my head. I can't see anything but Huddersfield win here, to be honest.
No, I think they've signed a Dutch wingback called Rooksen.
That's a fun name for us to pronounce.
Roosken, I believe, is the pronunciation, but I'll probably be corrected. Huddersfield, very impressive. And I mean, I don't know if anyone's heard that Steve Evans interview post Lincoln. He's a great manager and he knows how to get under people's skin. He's just not he knows he's not very likable, and all credit to him because he does a great job at being a right pain in the arse. But I'll go 3-1.
3-1 to
Huddersfield. Yeah. No credit to Evans here because apparently he might like winning at Lincoln, but he clearly hasn't liked winning in general this year. So
I like that.
There we go.
And I've gone for 2-0 to Huddersfield. And my final game, 2 teams we've spoken about already, Barnsley and Crawley Town. Obviously, Crawley had the much needed rest. Barnsley got their 3rd home win of the season last time out. I am actually going to go for a really high scoring draw here. I'm going to go 3-3.
Okay. Yeah, do you think this will be the mad one? I can't see. I think Barnsley I think they'll kind of have another one of those solid performances that kind of did against Wrexham 2-0. I can see happening.
And the reason I've done that is I predicted Peterborough Crawley and I predicted a mental score. I think I predicted 3-3 in that one. And Posh went and bloody scored in like the 85th minute to win that 4-3. Something like that. I very nearly got that right. So I'm going with one more mental prediction. Yeah. So that is the end of this week's show. We hope you've enjoyed. If you have watching on YouTube, make sure you leave a like. If you're on your preferred platform, Spotify or podcast, give us a a nice 5-star rating if you wouldn't mind. So thank you everyone for listening. Make sure you join Jamie and Seb for the first review podcast of the new year. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, and we hope to see you all in the next podcast.